everybody. Welcome to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo. This is episode number 61. My name is Gabe Estel, here with my co-host, Jonathan Getz. How's it going?
Great.
All right. And Levi couldn't be with us tonight. We send a shout out to him. Safe travels as he's making his way back to Colorado. All right. We've got episode number 61 tonight. Really stoked to have this interview with Bob Balch of Fu Manchu. Okay.
Lead guitarist.
Lead guitarist for Fu Manchu. Fu Manchu, great California rock band that's been around for quite a while now. And to give you a little bit of a Fu Manchu overview, Fu Manchu, most people put them in the genre of stoner rock or stoner metal. Now, obviously, there's a pretty obvious connotation to what that could imply. But as far as the sound goes, I guess the best way to put it really would be it combines heavy metal with, but it's a little more slowed down and a little more psychedelic.
Yeah,
is how I would describe it. You don't hear a lot of psychedelic sounds in Slayer necessarily, but you would in a lot of these stoner metal or stoner rock bands. Okay. To me, I tell people, if they really want to hear the roots of the genre, this is one of those instances where one album really represents the roots of a genre more than, any other, I think. Well, I mean, anybody who's more of an aficionado of the genre than I am, would probably give me some examples of just maybe albums that predate this one. But to me, Master of Reality, Black Sabbath's 1971 masterpiece. And I don't use that word. I use that word in all seriousness because it is. That album really kind of is the roots of the genre, really. Some other bands I think that probably early bands that had an influence on that sound, I'd say Blue Cheer probably would have some influence on that sound too. But definitely Sabbath's Master of Reality, just a really groundbreaking album, and influenced so many great bands, Fu Manchu being one of them. Other bands in the genre, you've got Caius, you've got
Monster Magnet.
You could even say like early Queens of the Stone Age.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? There's a lot of smaller bands that have Sleep, maybe.
The Heads.
Heads, yeah, the Heads. Maybe Sleep might be a stretch. Some people, maybe that's more doom. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of great bands out there right now, as well as some younger bands too that are in the genre. But Fu Manchu is one of the veterans, and we're really excited to have Bob on the show tonight. A quick note for our subscribers out there: our XLM feed will soon change. If you subscribe through iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher, then your subscription feed should update automatically. However, if you subscribe through an app like Downcast or Pocket Cast, then you may need to update our feed to the new address, which is media.rockchew.com/rockchew.xml. I know that's a mouthful. We'll certainly post it on the website as well as all of our social media outlets too. Again, that's media.rockchew.com/rockchew.xml. If you have any trouble, don't hesitate to contact us on Facebook, Twitter, or email tbolin@rockchew.com. That's TBOLIN@rockchew.com. So we're really excited to share this interview with Bob Balch from Fu Manchu. This interview is a lot of fun, not just because of the content, but also because of the context. In this interview, Bob is actually feeding his 18-month-old, who is rocking some classic kids' tunes in the background. So this provides a great contrast to Bob's references to Iron Maiden and custom distortion pedals. Jonathan conducted this interview with Bob, so I'll go ahead and hand it over to him. Here's his interview with Bob Balch of Fu Manchu.
Bob Balch has been the lead guitarist for Fu Manchu since 1996 and is founding member of Sun and Sail Club. In 2009, Bob started PlayThisRiff.com, a guitar, bass, and drum lesson website that features sessions with Scott Ian, Tracy Guns, Jay Mascis, Mike Watt, and many, many more. Bob himself is also offers transcriptions of his entire Fu Manchu repertoire. You can even sign up for live one-on-one guitar lessons with Bob via Skype. Bob, welcome to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo Chu.
Well, hey, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Doing great. Hey, do you remember your first guitar lesson as a kid?
Yeah, totally. I took lessons from the same guy who taught Fu Manchu's bass player. And we, like, me and the bass player didn't know each other at the time, but we both took lessons from him. He's like the local dude around town. And he was a huge, like, Charles Bukowski fan and a pretty heavy drinker, so you can imagine, like, you know, young 13-year-old me and our bass player, like, the kind of stuff that he would talk about. And he was a really good teacher, but he was pretty out there, you know.
How old were you?
I was like 13 or 12 or something when I first started. It was at this place in Orange County that I ended up working at. Eventually, the drummer of the Foo Fighters worked there, and then he split to go tour with Alanis Morissette, and then later on became a member of the Foo Fighters. So I took his job after teaching there after taking lessons there for like 4 years. And then from there, the bass player of Fu Manchu started working there before me, and that's how I met him, and that's how I got into Fu Manchu and stuff. So it all kind of started with taking lessons at that one guitar shop in town, you know.
And so when you go in there, what are you asking to learn? What are you hoping to learn?
He was the same way I teach people on Skype for the most part. Like, I just went in for starters. I was like, hey, I want to learn this like Black Sabbath riff, or, you know, this Deep Purple riff. And then it would get to the point where I'm like, I want to learn how to solo, and I want to learn, you know, how to improvise. And he was good. He was good at all that stuff. And then I kind of like went through his whole list of things that there's my sick kid, that he taught. And then it got to a point where I was like, I'll just do ragtime because he's good at that. And I started doing like weird ragtime shit with him, and then went to another teacher to learn jazz stuff. And oddly enough, our bass player from Fu Manchu went to the same guy also. So we kind of like went from one dude to the next. And then once we met each other, we were like, oh, you took lessons from Randy and Mark? That's weird. And then, you know, the rest is kind of Fu Manchu history, I guess.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of rock and jazz early on.
Yeah, I just got like, there was a couple of dudes in, like, you know, junior high and high school that were like the metal rock guys. There was like 3 dudes, right? And the bass player of Fu Manchu was a senior when I was a freshman. And he was like one of the main like guitar dudes. Like, everyone in school's like, holy shit, have you seen Brad play? He's so good. And I never really saw him play. But there was like 2 other guys in my class that were like the shredders. And it got so competitive to see who could play the fastest. I just took a complete other turn. I'm like, well, I'm just going to learn ragtime because it's ridiculous how like these guys are just like, you know, that's sort of like typing. So I was like, fuck it, I'll do something totally different. And then, yeah, that's that pretty much.
And before that, do you remember like the first record you bought?
Yeah, it was Scorpions' "Love at First Sting." Actually,
nice.
I think, what was that, like 1984 or something? But yeah, I had an older brother, and he had a pretty extensive like heavy metal tape collection and stuff. And I took over his guitar because he was like kind of like the older brother who was like the bad dude, like into like smoking weed and shit. And he got like shipped off to military school because they couldn't, you know, contain his metalness. Is like, you know, he's on Iron Maiden and shit and smoking weed. So I was like, well, I'll take over his guitar and all of his metal tapes. And I was only like 9 or 10 when he got shipped off, and then just absorbed all that stuff really quickly. And I still have his guitar too. Like, I'm looking at it right now. It's just an old shitty nylon string, but you know, I carved AC/DC in it. Like, it's mine now. You know, it's in the fretboard. It says AC/DC, and it's like, I remember going to my first lesson. He's like, "That's not an A note, and that's not a C note, and that's not D." I'm like, "No, dude, it's AC/DC." That's what I'm at. That's what I'm doing.
So you've got some pretty cool videos online of your pedal setup. Who influenced you early on in your guitar tone and technique?
Well, when I joined Fu Manchu, there was already kind of a template that had been formed with those guys, and I joined as a fan, so I didn't want to change anything, you know. So I was just looking to see what Eddie was using, pretty much. The old guitar player, I was like, I want to know what amp and pedal he used, and yeah, I mean, from there, I just kind of started messing with different fuzz pedals and things. And our bass player builds fuzz pedals for a living. So that's a really cool thing to have a member of your band that can show up every day with like an old, like, here's a replica of like an old, you know, 60s pedal or like a Zonk machine, some weird fuzz that's like you can't really get a hold of anymore.
Yeah.
So by doing that with him, his company's called Creepy Fingers. I just handpick all the stuff I like that he does. So I've got a big collection of things he's done, and just started experimenting with using 2 fuzz pedals at once and like choking one of them. He does this thing where you put a bias control on the top, which kind of just chokes the signal, starves it, and then I like overblow a fuzz like after that one. So it's like one fuzz is just way over the top, the other one's kind of choking the one that's over the top. So like that kind of guitar tone took me years to mess around with all that stuff to find that, but we used that on Gigantoid, the last Fu Manchu record, and I used it on one of the rhythm guitars on the last Sun and Sail Club record too. So, but yeah, it's all just experimentation, just going through and trying as much things as you can, many combinations as you can. And lately, I'm extremely stoked on what I'm using. So, it took me, it's like joined in '96, so it's taking a long time to mess around with stuff. I think it's always going to be a journey. You know what I mean? It's always going to be. I love what I'll still experiment. And there might be something better. My kid's tripping out. He's like, "Who the hell are you talking to?"
This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. Then, so when you joined in *96, you were pretty cognizant of the fact of sticking to the template.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like I was a fan, and I didn't want to. I was kind of just going like, all right, I'll just fill Eddie's shoes. Like I'll just kind of do what he was doing, and. As the albums went on further and further, I started to like interject my own thing too, like Action Is Go, I joined and that was pretty much like almost fully written,
Right.
So I just came in and recorded it with those guys and did my leads and everything. But what's really helped me over the years is doing Skype lessons, because I get dudes who contact me and they go, yeah, I love Fu Manchu, but I also dig like, Cactus or Zeppelin or Sabbath, and I want to learn all these solos. So I, in a sense, get paid to sit around and figure out all those solos and then just cherry pick shit from all those dudes too,
Right.
And it's great to be able to play like 8 or 9 hours a day and just walk away from a day of teaching and going, oh cool, I got this rad like Jimmy McCarty lick that I can bust out now, and that's helped out a lot of stuff.
Yeah. When the research pays off in more than one way, it makes it a pretty efficient line of research.
Yeah, and like when I was in high school, I was doing like trying to learn like Maiden solos and shit. And I'm like, I got this rock thing wired, man. I'm gonna go over to like jazz now. And then once I started teaching more rock stuff, I was like, no, there's a lot of things to be done, with that kind of thing. So
yeah,
it's cool because we re-released some of that stuff and toured on. We did like Actions Go from start to finish on a tour, King of the Road, and those records are I think like 20 years old now or something. Mm-hmm. So the amount of like stuff I've accumulated since it came out, like the songs are played the same, but it's like it's a different approach. I look at it like a little bit older, a little bit wiser kind of thing,
Right. And so yeah, I saw you on the Action As Go's anniversary tour where you were doing that in its entirety. Do you approach that sort of tour differently than a traditional tour where you're pulling songs from the entire catalog?
Yeah, I mean we would do 2 sets, so we would do like 6 like main tunes that we always have in our set that people would be pissed if we didn't play, and then we would come back out and do the full record,
Right.
But we're going to Europe in October to do King of the Road, because we were supposed to do last year, but we had to cancel because one of us had a really sick family member. So, but yeah, it'll be the same thing. We'll go over to Europe and just do 6 of the like, classic tunes, and then come back out and do all of King of the Road, which is really fun.
And so part of what you did for Play This Riff was put your entire the entire Fu Manchu you transcribed all of your Fu Manchu songs.
Well, yeah, I did videos for everything. Some of the stuff I don't really own the rights to. Oddly enough, I had to it took me a year to get the rights to put that stuff up. But yeah, I started it just to be like, oh, I bet I was originally just going to sell the videos on like iTunes or something and be like, here's a lesson. And I figured, well, then people can share them and stuff. So I purchased the site, and it has like a built-in firewall. And so I know that, members can go on there and they can only see what I want them to see. So I started doing the Fu Manchu thing, and then I was like, well, I should get some other bands on there to help promote it. And the first band I reached out to was Exodus, and the guy was like, yeah, I'll totally do it. And, their tour manager is a big Fu Manchu fan. He's like, seriously, I love you guys. Do whatever you want. So come down and interview the guy. And then from there, I was like, well, shit, if it works for Exodus, it'd probably work for a bunch of other bands too, And now there's like 70 bands on the site, and Exodus's tour manager became our tour manager and took us around the country and drove us to safety through like crazy snowstorms in Laramie, Wyoming and shit like that.
Wow.
But yeah, it's cool, man. And doing the play this riff thing, like I've been able to reach out to some of my idols, dudes that I usually wouldn't bother, and be like, hey, would you mind being part of the site? There are a lot of people on the site want to hear you play, and got to go to like Greg Heston's house from the Circle Jerks and watch him just do Circle Jerk stuff in front of me. I'm like, this is crazy. Dinosaur Jr., like you said. And it's been rad, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, the Mike Watt, Tracy Guns. I mean, what's it like to be sitting there with these guys, instruments in hand, and
it's trippy,
they might be telling stories, they might be playing riffs. Fascinating.
Yeah, it's trippy, and I'm thankful every time I do it. I'm just like, well, especially if it's someone I've been listening to for a long time, and they're playing riffs that I'm like, it just makes me smile. I'm like, oh, dude, this dude's just like playing this for me. Like I did a lesson with Wino from The Obsessed, and he was playing at the Casbah, and he's like, I got a hotel down the street. Let's just shoot down there. It's like Wino's playing his acoustic for me in a hotel, just me and him. I'm like, there's no other like way in the world that this would happen if it wasn't for this website. You know what I mean? It would be extremely awkward. But
it's a great excuse.
Yeah, that was. But the Circle Jerk stuff, I was like tripping out and going to his house and just watching him play that, and he's asking me like, is it this or is it this? And I'm like, dude, right. Don't ask me. I don't know.
I imagine, though, you might get that sometimes, though, with guys wanting to learn Fu Manchu riffs.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I do that. Part of my day is just teaching that stuff. But yeah, like Chuck Dukowski from Black Flag, going to his house. I spent like 6 hours at his house, like after the interview was done, just bullshitting with the guy. And, and still, kind of keep in contact with him. And it's forged a lot of like cool. Oh, Scott Reeder from Caius. Mm-hmm. That relationship started from Play This Riff, and then I ended up recording at his house and being like, hey, you want to play bass on this record? And then playing shows with him, which has been unreal. So yeah, it's
with
opened
the Sun and Sail Club.
Yeah. So it's opened a lot of doors. Otherwise, because he didn't even know me. He knows who Fu Manchu is, but it'd be weird for me to just like a stranger be like, hey man, you want to record on this record? But
yeah, right. Anymore it's great to have an excuse. And
yeah, that's been rad. So, and that's always something we talk about, going back and doing more stuff and everything when everyone in that band's not busy, because everyone's kind of doing separate stuff at the moment. But
sure. Now you've also you've designed a signature guitar for Reverend. What was that process like?
Well, they're the guitar builders. I'm merely just a dude saying like, this is what I want it to sound like, and this is kind of what I want it to look like. If I had to build a guitar, it would look like a shoe. It wouldn't even play. It would be terrible. So those guys know their shit. But yeah, I've been endorsed by Reverend, or I've been endorsing Reverend for like since 2010, maybe. 6 years, and they've given me a bunch of guitars since then. And then we played at the Orion Fest with Metallica in Detroit, and we're all sitting backstage, and I was getting those guys kind of buzzed, and then they're like, well, we should do like a Balch signature, and I'm like, you guys are drunk, there's no way. And then they emailed me, they're like, what do you think about doing it like this? Which colors would you want to do? And they had one guitar called a Daredevil, which like, I don't know if you're a guitar player or not, but like if certain notes on there, if you hit them, it'll sustain and bloom. And it's like the only guitar I have that'll be like, Twah! Like it totally just starts freaking out. And I'm like, I want that. Like whatever that Daredevil does, I want that to happen in my signature. So they figured with like more resonant, to make it sustain more, they carved out like a little chunk underneath the pick guard. So it's not a semi-hollow body, but there's a big hollow
Interesting.
section.
Yeah.
There's a chamber in there, yeah. So if you take the pick guard off, you just see this big compartment, and it kind of, if you hit a note and you're not even plugged into an amp or anything, you kind of feel the guitar, So
wow.
it's cool. And like our singer had the same kind of thing going on. The guitar player from the Adolescents had the same thing going on when I interviewed him, where they had just an empty cavity where a pickup should be. And, just yanked it out and go, I never used the neck pickup. I'll just have this empty thing. Mm-hmm. And those two guitars, like I'd hear them, especially the Adolescence guy. When I interviewed him, I was editing those videos. And I'm like, this doesn't sound like any Gibson I've heard before. It's just a Gibson through like a Marshall 800, but it sounded like harmonically like really rich. And I was just like, I don't know. It's got to be that empty cavity, Yeah. So they did that for me. And then the pickups, the Railhammer pickups that they put in, there's like signature pickups in there. I just said I wanted a spike in the mid-range because a lot of the fuzz pedals that I use are already really bass heavy and, kind of gnarly. So And they did that. But yeah, other than that, I was just like kind of a yes or no guy. Like, I like that color. I like that shape. Yeah.
Sure. No, that's great. That's awesome when you can kind of do the pre-EQ just from the guitar, and then when it's paired with the distortion, it all comes out just how you want it.
Yeah. And I could, I've A-B'd guitars, pedals all day long, sitting here, getting ready for records. And it's this combination that I've got right now is like by far my favorite. And it's due to that signature guitar and those pickups.
Right on.
So.
I read you're a fan of Kraftwerk and even 70s soft rock. Anything else in the record collection that might catch us a bit off guard?
Yeah, I mean, my record collection's enormous. It's like there's anything in there except like I don't listen to modern country, but other than that, like there's all kinds of shit in there, anything you can imagine. But the Kraftwerk is a big influence on that first Sun and Sail Club record. Where I thought it'd be cool to have like Kraftwerk meets like Torch or something, like a real heavy. I'm getting an amp built right now, and the guy just texted me a picture of it. It looks beautiful. Hovercraft's amps. I got to plug them.
Hovercraft.
An amp right now. Just Hovercraft. Yeah, he does really good stuff and real heavy sounding amps, really gnarly. So he just texted me that, and I'm excited.
Right on. So yeah, on that first Sun and Sail using the vocoder and Kraftwerk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was a big thing, and like the vocoder was really just me going, all right, I was asking people to sing on it, and I couldn't really expect people to just make up like all the whole record, all the lyrics, everything. So I was like, all right, I'll just make up as many lyrics as I can and do it in the vocoder to be like, because I can't sing for shit, to be like, here's what I'm thinking. And then we were doing that in Reader's studio, and he was like, this is pretty unique. I've never heard anything like this. I'm like, yeah, I love it, but I thought I was just being totally weird. And he's like, I mean, it's probably a lot of people won't really get it, but I think it's badass. I think you should just keep it. And I'm like, all right, cool.
Sure.
So I'm a huge fan of like Devo and stuff. Whenever bands are kind of like fucking with people, I think it's funny, Devo's gnarly like that. So
yeah, absolutely. I've been on a huge Kraftwerk kick of late, and it's awesome to just like get in the zone and work and it's great stuff. Yeah,
I mean they're like still doing really good. I think they're coming to LA and like selling out like huge like what? That's right.
Yeah, hoping to go. Check out Kraftwerk.
Yeah. Right
on. So, you have any childhood baseball memories?
I played baseball a little bit, but I have a recent memory that's pretty funny. Where I used to collect baseball cards in the '80s. I still have all that shit.
Oh, us too. 70s,
yeah. Late '70s, '80s, and I just kept them in a box. I haven't really paid attention to what's going on, and I found this website that like it'll just tell you how much your cards are worth, and I was like, I should see how much some of the, and I'd go through and be like, I remember Pete Rose. I don't know how much that's worth. And I started going through it, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like in like a half an hour, I was up to like $150,000 worth of baseball cards. I'm like, "Fucking A!" And I'm calling my wife, and I'm like, "Our problems are solved, honey. I'm gonna pay off the rest of this house. Don't tell anyone because I don't want people breaking into my house. But this is fucking it." And she's like, "Really? Calm down, dude." And I went back and did it. And then I checked another site. And I checked eBay, and the site I was on was totally fake.
No.
And like I checked like one of the cards, it was like $3,000. I had like 4 of them, and I go on eBay and some dude's selling it for like $2, and there's like no one watching. So for like an hour and a half, my heart was beating out of my chest. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna be so fucking rich. This is awesome. And then it was like wah, wah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my latest baseball memory.
Yeah, those cards, the value peaked probably about 1991. Unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was all downhill after that. After the market just got saturated.
Yeah, I mean, I always like every once in a while I'll pull them out and go like, I wonder what these are worth, man. But I don't know. I'll just leave them in the box and
Right. No. Now the upside to that is that if there were any cards that you always coveted from that time that you never had, you can go onto eBay and now get for $6 or $7.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I can't really say I'm a huge a sports fan. I surf and play the guitar, and that's about it. You know what I mean?
Did you go to any games as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, my dad had like season tickets to the Angels and shit. So we would go to those. It's pretty funny. He used to have like these binoculars that he would fill up with like Cutty Sark scotch. I remember being a little kid and being like, Well, that's a lot of scotch. But yeah, not to throw him under the bus, but I'm like, now that I'm older, I'm like, fuck, I wish I had those binoculars. That was pretty badass. To like, for concerts and shit. It's awesome.
That's brilliant. So yeah, the Angels had some pretty good teams there in the 80s.
Yeah, from what I remember.
Yeah. And even made it into the Naked Gun. Reggie Jackson, I Must Kill the Queen.
Yeah,
the late 80s.
Totally. I did like a Naked Gun marathon like last year. I just watched all of them in a row, like on the couch. That was pretty good.
Dude, yeah, that's priceless stuff.
Yeah. My dad actually got to party with Leslie Nielsen once at an airport. They got like their flight got delayed and they just sat. My dad like totally looked like Leslie Nielsen too, so it's funny to
in an
him.
airport, no less.
Yeah, and he said Leslie Nielsen just fucking like raged and fell off his bar stool and shit, and I was like, wow, and he's like way shorter than you would think he is.
Sure,
was, but yeah, I was like, that's amazing, because growing up like Airplane was fucking huge to me and still is. So
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you if you were to go to bat for the Angels, they called you up from the minors and you have one at bat. What's your walk-up song?
Yeah, I saw you send that. I wish I could put more thought into it. Fuck, that's a good one. You know what I've been doing lately? When we were on tour in Europe, we do this song called Saturn III. It's on the Action Is Go. And the guitar tech and myself, like, we were obsessed with the movie Top Gun because it was like one of the only movies on the bus. And like just how shitty it is and how cheesy it is, So I would throw that Top Gun that lick in Saturn III for a second and just look over at him and that would like crack us both up. And then at the end of our set, we had the sound guy play the theme, like the song that's playing when Goose dies. It was like 4,000 stoner rockers and like a festival in Switzerland are forced to listen to the soundtrack to Top Gun for like 5 minutes. So maybe I don't know, that'd be kind of funny. Come out to the Top Gun.
That would be classic. That would be great. I don't know of anybody who does that.
Yeah.
That'd be ballsy too. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't do it though after, I wouldn't participate in anything after what happened to Gary Delabate, if you know who he is, but.
Oh, right. Yeah.
His pitch was pretty brutal. So I might just sit on the bench and take a dip.
Yeah.
I don't dip, but I'll just sit here and dip tobacco.
Yeah. You can't embarrass yourself.
I'd rather not know what would happen.
So yeah, this is great, and I recommend a lot of people check out amongst other than Fu Manchu Sun and Sail Club, that they check out playthisriff.com. You also have a YouTube channel you have a bunch of free videos up there on YouTube. You get an idea of some of the stuff that you can find on playthisriff.com. How else do you recommend people get a hold of you?
Through Facebook is fine, or just playthisriff@gmail.com. That's like the website address. I don't know when this is going to go live, but I should probably mention we've been doing this pickup giveaway where 2 subscribers win pickups like every 2 months. So this one is actually this campaign ends August 1st, and I'll randomly draw 2 people, but we're going to be doing that over and over. So when people subscribe, then you might be winning a signature, Railhammer pickup, which would be kind of rad.
Right on. Yeah. You can't beat that.
Hey, our thanks to Bob Balch of Fu Manchu and Sun and Sail Club. Be sure to check out Bob's guitar lesson website at playthisriff.com, where subscribers can win those signature Railhammer pickups. In addition to Facebook, you can also find Bob on Twitter at playthisriff. Search Play This Riff on YouTube to find a bunch of great videos that are just a taste of what you can get at that site, playthisriff.com. Thanks again to Bob. Please check us out. And also, you can check out Bob's music, too, on fumanchu.com as well. Also, please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RockChew. Okay?
No, at RockInChew.
At RockInChew. RockInChew. In as in...
Nebula.
Nebula. Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. So, check us out at RockInChew. And then also you can find out everything you need to know about rock and roll Shin-Soo Chu at RockChew. That's no N. RockChew.com. All right. So check us out there, please. Also, you can like us on Facebook, too. Tell all your friends. Also, go to iTunes and subscribe to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo Chu. Okay?
Or YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube.
Or YouTube. Or you
as well.
subscribe to YouTube too. Just subscribe. That way, when a new episode comes out, you'll have it right there, and you can enjoy it with all of your friends and family. Well, most of your family. Anyway, so until next time, we'll see everybody later. Have a good one.
Peace.